Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Better, where we have conversations with founders and leaders who are building great products and businesses. I am Jayveer, and today I am joined by Drenny Bajri, who works at the intersection of AI, customer relationship, and strategic growth. In this episode, we will explore the topic of AI adoption and the future of events. Drenny, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to talk with you.
Could you please tell us about yourself and your journey so far?
Absolutely. So I'm Drenny and I'm based in London and I currently work at one of the fastest AI growing companies in the world. And I would say that my journey into events and what I do now is really unconventional. I didn't take the usual route to where I am today, and I'm super excited to dive into that with you.
That's really interesting. And you work at the intersection of AI, events, and growth. What kind of conversation usually helps move an executive from understanding the technology to seeing how it can actually impact their business?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot of interest around AI at the moment, a lot of curiosity, a lot of skepticism. But I think the most important thing is basically showing your customers, prospects, clients the P&L, so the profit and loss. I think you can ignite any conversation around AI today and people are going to be interested in it. But to actually make people see how it's going to benefit their business is a whole different challenge. And I think the way to kind of do that is show them, how they're going to make profit if they adopt it, but also how they're going to make loss if they don't.
And as AI becomes more capable of automating research and processes and content and follow-ups, where do you think human intersection still makes the biggest difference?
It's a good question. And it's one that we get asked all the time, especially being in a role like events. I think AI can help do the research, AI can help you prep for the event, but I think the human is still the most important part. I think, humans build trust. And I think when you are working in an AI company, especially when your prospects and clients are enterprise customers, you really need the human behind it. And I think having those in-person conversations is still invaluable. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. As I said, I think AI helps make the process quicker, easier. It helps with the prep, as I mentioned, but I think you still need the thought leaders in the room. You still need the people that are selling the tool in the room because humans buy from people, and that's just how it is. And I think that it's going to stay that way for a very long time. So I think this leads really well into the, is AI taking our jobs? I think in events we've got nothing to worry about.
Right.
I think events still need the human, definitely.
And staying on that, could you please tell us about your journey as an event manager, like how you chosen this career and like how's your experience with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in tech actually for around 7 years now, and I actually joined the tech industry in an ed tech company, working primarily in training coordination, then slowly morphing into a more customer success centric role. And then from there, continued on into tech. I did a stint in Dubai doing real estate, but we'll leave that on the side for
Hmm.
now. And then
Okay.
when I came back from Dubai, I went back into tech and I love the industry. I think I'm very
Hmm.
forward thinking. I'm very adaptable. And I think to work in the tech industry, you have to be adaptable to change. And I
Hmm.
loved that. I love that about it. I joined AutoGen AI in 2023 as one of the founding account managers. And the team was very small back then. It was, very tech startup vibes, loads of people in one room, laptops on top of each other. And I really loved what I was doing. I loved the industry, but I think I missed something creative. And I wanted to find something that kind of brought together the customer centric side of things, staying in the tech industry, but also that internal stakeholder management and kind of, being creative and putting it all together. If you had have asked me 10 years ago what my dream job was, it was events. And I used to
Hmm.
say that to
Hmm.
people and they were like, what do you mean events? And I'd always
Hmm.
say, I want to work in, corporate events, bringing, decisions and strategy to life visually and
Hmm.
creatively. And I was really
Hmm.
fortunate enough to work for a company that, really empowered people's like
Hmm.
choices and where they wanted to go. And I think, working in a tech startup, if you really want to work hard, you can absolutely pave your own path. And I would say that's kind of what I did. I,
Hmm.
put together all my greatest strengths and managed to, I think, be quite good at what I do. I think my background in customer success really, really helped me in what I do today. I understand the customer, I understand how to relay important information to the customer. I'm also really great at building relationships and keeping them. And I think that in events is extremely important, not only with your customers and prospects, but also with your
Hmm.
vendors, with your, external event managers, whoever you speak to on
Hmm.
a daily basis. And I'd say I'm quite lucky to, have that relationship building and maintaining skill. So I always say, I kind of found my dream career unconventionally. I kind of
Hmm.
paved the path along with,
Hmm.
people who really supported me and championed me.
Hmm.
But it's possible. If I can do it, anyone can do
Hmm.
it.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I love that perspective. And how do you see AI making impact on businesses today, and how it is changed the outcomes like with the AI?
AI is changing not only businesses, but I think AI is absolutely changing the world. And it is one of them things that you either have to get on board and learn it, adopt it, bring it into your life, or you're going to get left behind. And I think with businesses, that's really, really important. I think there's a lot of change is scary, right? As humans, we are kind of wired to stay in our comfort zone. We're wired to stick to what we know because everything else seems super dangerous. But I think, AI is it's not just the future, it's the now. And I think
Right. I
and I think
agree on
companies and
that.
businesses
Hmm.
really need to jump on the bandwagon. And not only
Hmm.
businesses, but I think individuals as well. I was using ChatGPT before it was cool. And I remember a friend of mine who is a software engineer, and I'll send him this and he'll find this really funny. He sent me a link to ChatGPT
Hmm.
very early on and he was like, Drenny, you need to look at this thing. And I had to play around with it. And I think back then it only really put together sentences and paragraphs,
Hmm.
but it was like, whoa, this is like crazy.
Hmm.
And I am a curious person. I like to try new things and I like to be good at them. And if I'm not good at them, I lose interest. So it was something that I was good at. I was quite creative with my prompts. I kind of figured out how to make it work for me. And I
Hmm.
think that not only businesses need to have this mentality, but I also think individuals. I'm trying to get my parents on it. They're a different
Hmm. Hmm.
generation. I don't think they're very
Yeah. Hmm.
interested.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think it's just about, understanding that if you don't adopt it into your business, and if you
Hmm.
haven't already, then you might actually be a little bit too late because your competitors probably already have. And not
Right.
only have they
Hmm.
adopted it, they're probably utilizing it in aspects that you wouldn't even think of.
Yeah, I that really makes sense. And you work at AutoGen AI, and AutoGen AI works in a space where trust and quality really matters. How do you create an event experience that helps people move from AI sounds interesting to actually understanding its a business value?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I think this really links back to like, how do you move from the curiosity piece to the genuine interest piece, right?
Hmm.
Firstly, I think just be human. I think that sounds
Okay.
like common
Hmm.
sense, but I
Right.
think, remove the demoing, remove the pitching. I think if you manage
Hmm.
to get your, prospects and customers in a room together, they probably already have seen a demo. They probably
Hmm.
already know who you are. I think
Right.
if you've managed to get to the stage where they're in an event with you, I think you need to really start showing them how they can use your tool specifically for their business. You need them leaving that room thinking, okay, not, oh, AI looks cool, but you need them to leave that room thinking, okay, we need this now. This is what we're going to do to adopt it. This is how we're going to make sure we adopt it successfully. And there's many ways to do that. I think the first way is to have customer advocacy. I think if you have an event, try and have an existing customer, try and have an ambassador, try and have a champion in that room. People buy from people, as I mentioned before. I can mention how amazing AutoGen AI is until I'm blue in the
Hmm.
face. They're gonna
Hmm.
more likely believe an existing customer who's already used us, already adopted us,
Hmm.
who's had the
Hmm.
pain points. We're not saying that every adoption of a tool is perfect, but who's already had those pain points and overcome them and can now show how amazing it's been for their business. I think if you trap people into a room and just demo at them, you're going to lose interest instantly. Think
Hmm.
how many demos they've seen, think how many people outbound to them, think how much contact they get. but I think you really need to make it personable. You need to be human and say, look, we're a business, but we're human first. And
Hmm.
these are all the amazing people in this room who've already adopted us. You learn from them. If you don't want to believe us, take their word for it. And I think that really changed the game for us in our events. We
Hmm.
really pushed for customer advocacy, customer testimonials. We really, really let our customers and our ambassadors do the talking for us.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really powerful point. And staying on that, with AI changing how businesses or companies sell and communicate today, so do you think events themselves need to change, or is the human experience becoming more valuable today in AI era?
It's a good question, and it's one I think about a lot. I think events absolutely have to change. And
Hmm.
this doesn't mean scrap the whole event, strategy and start from the beginning. I think, events as an industry is evolving very, very quickly. And I think a lot of companies get left behind because they don't want to, fix what isn't broken, and their event strategy has worked for them up till now. I think events do have to change. I think, your trade shows and your conferences do well for first base intros, right? For
Hmm.
a good example is London Tech Week. It's the biggest tech conference in
Hmm.
EMEA. It's massive.
Yeah. Hmm.
However, I don't think your key decision makers, I don't think your, dream customers are going to be walking that floor. So I think for brand awareness and brand visibility and brand access, it's great. But I think people think that they can, build a business just on trade shows alone. And I think that's wrong. And I think that's where a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot because they're basing their success metrics on leads.
Hmm.
However, I think your more intimate events, your customer advisory boards, your executive roundtables, your dinners, your happy hours, whatever it is, that's where you really build the relationships. And that's where, you really, really will see your event strategy change and shift. I
Hmm.
think you need both. I do think you need both to be successful, but I think how you do them should change. And I think there's power in doing events intentionally. And what I mean by that is really thinking what works for us. Are we in the right section? Do we have the right branding? Is our artwork, going to fit the room? And I think
Hmm.
that takes a lot more work than let's just book a booth and see what happens.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
also think what you do in your business the first 2 years event wise is very different to what you do in your business the, second, third, fourth, fifth year. I think the first year you do need to be everywhere. You need everyone to know your name. I think when you get to about year two, year three, especially in tech startups, you can definitely be more intentional and you should have the data by then to kind of back your decisions or some data. Data's a
Hmm.
fun conversation in events and
Right.
attribution, but I
Hmm.
think I think yeah, I think your year 1 to 2 is very different to your year 3 to 4.
Yeah, that's a great insight. And what do you think companies should understand before they start investing heavily in AI?
What do they need from it? I
Hmm.
think, there's so many AI tools out there right now, and I think you can throw money at any of them. But I think the best thing to do is kind of sit there and go, okay, what do we actually need this AI to do? Like I said, you can buy an AI tool for anything now, absolutely anything. Like I don't know, clean my emails, you can find a tool for it.
Right.
But I
Hmm.
think I think the first thing a business should do is really sit down and break down the granular of what do we need this AI tool to do for us. And then I think when you know the why and the what, then you can really
Hmm.
start to, qualify those
Hmm.
tools and see what works best for you.
Yeah, that's a very realistic and good perspective. And when you're planning any event, what business outcome do you define first before thinking about the format?
And so as in success metrics, like the business
Hmm. Yeah.
outcome.
Yeah.
It's a good question. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a mistake to put a whole event success metric on one scorecard. I think depending on how you look at your events and what success looks like, I think there's two different measurements here. I think one of the measurements is customer advocacy, retention, renewal, and then the
Mm-hmm.
other success metric is leads and inbound and brand awareness. I think if you put both of them together and measure them together, you're gonna fail because they're two
Mm-hmm.
completely different things. But I think before every event, we, really go in and try and find what we want that outcome to be. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
your customer advisory board events are going to have different success metrics to your conferences and your trade shows. I think my advice to anyone who does events would be don't put them all on one scorecard and don't just rate every event out of 10
Hmm.
wholly because you
Mhm.
really need to break down the granulars. I think if you measure each event success in one way, you're going to end up probably not repeating events that do really, really well for one or the other. Um, but yeah, I think for each event, every single event should have a different success metric. You obviously have your typical success metrics, leads, inbounds,
Hmm.
meetings
Hmm. Hmm.
booked, you know, from meetings to demos and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But I think
Hmm.
holistically and strategically, I think you really, really should think about things in two separate ways. So, like I said, you've
Mhm.
got your inbounds, your meetings booked compared to your customer advocacy, retention, and renewal. And I think you should
Hmm.
really look at events from the whole picture.
Mhm. And then how do you deal when sales, marketing, and customer success have completely different ideas about the success looks like, what success looks like?
It's a good question. And look,
Mm-hmm.
it happens all the time. I
Yeah.
think that, those departments, even though they have one end goal in mind, I think they have very, very conflicting priorities.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just need to all sit down together and kind of decide what success looks like for your business. I think if you are all trying to make one event fit into one success metric for the different departments in your business, it's going to be extremely difficult. And especially
Mm-hmm.
as an event manager, it's on you to kind of manage those conversations and ensure that the right conversations are being had. Luckily, we've got to a place now, I think, in at Autogen AI where we really do have those conversations very early on. What does this event look like for RevOps? What does this event look like for customer success? What does this event look like for sales? But I think it's just about managing expectations very early on and having those conversations early on. I think, it's difficult, it's hard to manage. And I think for event managers, it can add a lot of stress to the event process, right? So you've got planning the event itself, which is really, really stressful, but then you've also got these different conversations going on inside, like, within the business. But I think just, don't all believe that you have to be singing from the same hymn sheet. You have different priorities in your different departments, but it's just on the event managers to make sure them conversations are being had and that, the communication is there.
Mm-hmm. And building on that, what Autogen AI is actually doing and how it helps other people or businesses.
Yeah, so AutoGen AI is a bid writing tool. That is the simplest way to put it. It uses AI and, large language models collaboratively in order to write winning bids. So businesses use us to win more business. And,
Okay.
that it's extremely successful. It does amazingly well. And I think that bid writing is one of those industries that, is
Mm-hmm.
really set in their ways. And I think making businesses, change has been a big pain
Hmm.
point for us. Change the way they do things, change what is working. But it really is the start to end solution for bid writing, proposal
Mm-hmm.
writing, tender writing, however you want to word it.
Okay. And you have achieved 10x increase in Autogen in G2 presence in under 3 quarter through customer advocacy and internal enablement. What did that experience teach you about getting customers to become a genuine advocates?
It's a very good question. And I absolutely love the G2 piece because I really, really wanted to figure it out. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I did. I think you just have to make customer advocacy easier to do it than not. You have to make it so easy for your customers that if they don't do it, it's almost weird. And that
Mm-hmm.
that again sounds like a very broad answer, but I think we wanted people to, advocate for us in a way that felt authentic and honest, but also really easy for them. And an example of this, without giving away all the secrets, an example for this is we made our G2 link accessible at every single customer event. So any event where we had our customers there, we
Mm-hmm.
made it available on QR codes, we made it available on follow-up emails, we made it available absolutely everywhere that it was too easy for them to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, we have to remember that we don't want to be giving people more work. We don't want to be giving people more things to do in the day. we want to make it really, really easy for them. We're also
Mm-hmm.
really lucky that our customers genuinely really like our tool and it works really well and it's great. So I think that piece is really important as well. I think it's hard to get customer advocacy if you're kind of struggling on that piece. But I think you just make it so easy for your customer and you also just
Mm-hmm.
really, really home in on those relationships. And if your tool works, if you have those great relationships, if you, like I said, make it easy for them, then they will give you, customer testimonials and they'll give you G2 reviews. I also was really lucky to have, a great G2 customer success manager who worked really closely with us and broke down the granulars of, how we can make this work for us and what looks good for us. And I think that is a piece that a lot of companies miss. I think they just assume that, like, oh, testimonials are easy,
Mm-hmm.
reviews are really easy. They're really difficult to obtain. And I think
Right.
it's just about working together with your customers, building on those relationships that you have, but also thinking about how that's going to work for your business. The way you
Mm-hmm.
collect reviews is going to be very different for a tech company as opposed to a candle making company. They're two completely different strategies. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really about understanding that one size doesn't fit all. And when I took over G2, I came in with that mindset. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, how are we going to make these reviews work for us as a tech business, as an AI business? And how do we make it scalable and repeatable as well?
And like events can be difficult to measure because the value of relationship may appear months later. And how do you balance immediate ROI with the longer term value of relationship and brand positioning?
It's a really good question. And I think this boils back down to what we discussed previously, just about having those conversations. I
Mm-hmm.
think, you're going to have different conversations on events with your chief revenue officer in comparison to your chief customer officer. I also think, like I said before, you go into the event knowing what you're hoping to get out of it. But I think your typical ROI metrics are always, leads, meetings booked, inbounds, whatever it is. But also you don't want to limit yourself to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that we've had customers before say to us, oh, we saw you at this event, 6 months ago. And that's
Mm-hmm.
how we know about you. And only now is the time right. But I think just have those conversations and make sure you're measuring all the metrics, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also think, being really specific with what you're going into the event to gain. We mentioned this before, but I think that really helps the after conversations because you've already communicated to your chief revenue officer, from this event, we think we're going to get this. And from this event, we want to get this. So I think making sure that that communication line is open with your internal stakeholders way before the event, but also way after the event as well.
Mm-hmm. And what AI tools you use on a daily for your daily work and to make your work easy as an event
Very,
manager?
very good question. So I use ChatGPT, I think, for the
Mm-hmm.
more basic, quick things, but I am absolutely converted to Claude Anthropic. I
Mm-hmm.
use it for my reporting. I use it to pull data. I use it to build, customer portfolios, client portfolios, attendee bios. I really wanted to make AI work for me and my tool and my role, sorry. I think events is one of those things where people almost feel like, wait, AI is not for me. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a coder. I'm not a designer. And I've had those conversations, at events with other event managers. They've said to me, how do you use it? Because I just don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's for me. I think you have
Right.
to make it for you. You have to make
Mm-hmm.
AI for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the way you do that is you just play around with it,
Mm-hmm.
see what's working, see what's not. But I'd say I use the mixture of the two. I also use it on things like Canva,
Mm-hmm.
but less. I'd say I definitely use Claude the most. And
Mm-hmm.
there's really nothing it can't do. So I
Mm-hmm.
think if
Yeah.
you really think outside the box, break down your role granularly and say, okay, can I do any of this with AI? Have a play around, give it a go and see
Mm.
what happens.
Yeah. And then how do you make yourself prepared before any event?
Very good question. I think I always plan what could go wrong in my head. And this sounds
Mm-hmm.
very negative, and I've had people say to me, don't be so pessimistic, don't be so negative. But I think the
Mm.
best way to prepare for an event is be prepared for anything that could go wrong. I think if you
Right.
think that way, you're already prepared. I mean,
Mm.
people laugh at me, but I take spare wires, chargers, remotes, plugs. I
Mm.
take everything with me to an event because I've already preempted what could go wrong. I already plan for the worst case scenario. It never usually happens. I think it's extra rare that it does,
Hmm.
but I ensure that I'm ready for anything that could go wrong. And then the other prep, obviously, is just making sure the team is prepared, the customers know where they're going, everything's
Hmm.
set up perfectly with the vendors. But I think
Hmm.
the best way to be prepared for anything is to just be ready for the worst case scenario.
Okay, and following in on that, is there something you intentionally do before or during an event to make those conversations feel more natural with the customers?
Yeah, I think it's just about ideally, I mean, trade shows are a bit different because, anyone could approach your booth, trade shows and
Hmm.
conferences. But I think if we're talking about the more intimate dinners or the more, intimate events, we always really know our attendees. We know them really well. And what I mean
Hmm.
by that is we know not only their name, we know the company they work at, the role they do, each individual, I mean. So we're talking every single individual in that room. We make
Hmm.
sure we know them in and out. We know their pain points they're having with our tool if they're a customer. We know the
Hmm.
pain points they're trying to solve if they're a prospect. And not only me, but the whole, team that is at the event, the internal team that's at the event. Because I think we've all been to events or we've all been to functions where we walk in and no one really knows who we are, why we're there. It's a waste of time.
Hmm.
And I say the best prep you can do is know the person in the room, know what department they sit in, know what pain points they have, know what, product complaints they have. I think that changes your event completely. And the person feels really welcome. And they also feel
Hmm.
like, they're not wasting their evening. But also, you as a business know exactly what you're going to talk about to them, how
Hmm.
you're going to land that deal if you want, if they're, prospect, but also how you're going to maintain that relationship if they're a customer.
Hmm.
Know your attendees really well. And that's, a tip I give every event manager. Know them in and out, stalk them, find out all the information you need to know,
Hmm.
but know your attendees.
Hmm. And what signals do you pay attention to someone like words and behaviors are telling two different things?
It's a good question. I think, typical body language is a good one. And
Hmm.
I'm ADHD, I'm neurodivergent myself. So I think I pick up on social cues really well. I notice things before other people notice them.
Hmm.
But body language, just do they look entertained? Do they look like they're enjoying the conversation? Are they making eye contact? Are they asking the right questions? Is a big one to pick up on.
Hmm.
Um, and I think after doing a certain amount of events, you get quite good at it.
Hmm. Hmm.
The vibe someone's giving off. So I
Right.
think just
Hmm.
your typical social cues, but also just understanding wording, language. Do they sound interested? Are they asking the right questions? It's a good place to
Hmm.
start.
And was there a moment when you realized that your earlier experience are actually preparing you for the work you are doing today?
Absolutely. I think this
Hmm.
goes back to our chat earlier, but I think my background in account management, customer success, training coordination, all those really customer facing roles really taught me how to work with customers. And in events, that's a big thing. You really need to know how to translate to your customer and how to build
Hmm.
those relationships. And I think that really prepared me. And I think that's led to me being quite good at what I do now.
What do you understand about success today and that wish you had understood earlier in your career?
It's a good question. I think, and this is a controversial take, and I think, when I say this to people, I always say this is controversial. No one has ever built a amazing, exemplary career on a normal 9 to 5. And I don't mean a normal 9 to 5 job. I mean a normal 9 to 5 mentality. You absolutely can have a great career on your, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You have to really work hard to be exemplary and to have an amazing,
Hmm.
exemplary career. And I think a lot of people don't like that because it almost sounds like I'm advocating against
Hmm.
healthy work-life balance. It almost sounds like I'm advocating for burnout, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is you have to really work hard. You have to be the first in, last out. Not every day, you know.
Hmm.
Some days you absolutely can not do that, but you have to really, really work hard and you have to give sacrifices if you want an extraordinary career. Not everyone does, and that's absolutely also okay. It's not for everyone. But I think if
Hmm.
you really want to do well, you have
Hmm.
to get that 9 to 5 mindset out of your mind. It holds a lot of people
Hmm.
back. And I think
Hmm.
this is really controversial, and a lot of people hear me say this and they're like, okay, that's a bit too much. It is a bit too
Hmm.
much. It's not for
Yeah.
everyone. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to
Hmm.
be for
Hmm.
everyone, and it's not meant to be for everyone. But I think if
Hmm.
you go into the workforce with that mindset of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 1 hour lunch break, 20-minute break here and there, you're not going to have an exemplary career. You're going to have a good
Right.
career and you're going to have a
Hmm.
stable career.
Hmm.
But I think if you are aiming for excellence, if you're
Hmm.
aiming
Hmm.
for, to be a business owner, to be an entrepreneur, to be whatever you want to be,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
really have to get that mindset out of your mind. And I
Hmm.
think,
Hmm. Hmm.
young people especially really, really need to adopt it. And I
Hmm. Hmm.
think
Hmm.
also another bit of advice that I wish I knew earlier, work at a startup.
Hmm.
Work at a startup. It will teach you a lot very quickly. Again, it's not for everyone, but if you get that opportunity, take it with two
Hmm.
hands, for sure.
Yeah, I love that perspective and I absolutely agree with that. And as an event manager, we like meet new people every day or customers every day. So, what are your top three learnings that's shaped who you are today?
Top three learnings. Good one. Meet people where they're at. And what I mean by that is don't expect everyone to be like you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, that's very confusing. Meet people where they're at, learn how to meet people in their own tone and in their own language. I think as an event manager, that's really, really, really important. Event managers will
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying with this, but if I
Yeah.
had to,
Mm-hmm.
but if I had to explain it to someone else, test the situation first, see what the environment's saying, see what, the customer, prospect, whatever, see where they're at, and then meet them there. Don't
Mm-hmm.
be overpowering, don't be, too communicative, don't, push a demo down their throat. See where they're at and meet them there. Build that relationship and then work upwards from that. I think that works really, really well in events. I think me
Mm-hmm.
personally, if I'm at an event and someone's trying to sell to me, I switch off completely if it's too much, right? That's just
Mm-hmm.
me. So first bit of advice, meet people where they're at. Second bit of advice, really work on your internal relationships. They're so important. I'm very lucky. I have incredible relationships with my CEO, with my CRO, CFO, and I really value those relationships. They're really important, not just for your, day-to-day work life, but for your career. I'm quite early on in my career, and I hope I maintain these relationships forever. Relationships are really important. Work on them. And then my third bit of advice is don't be scared to fail. Don't be scared to get things wrong. You learn your most when you fail because you can tell yourself, okay, I got this wrong this time. I'm never going to get that wrong again. So I think they're my three most important bits of advice. I think meet people
Amazing.
where they're at, meet
Mm-hmm.
people where they're at, really work on your internal relationships and don't be
Mm-hmm.
afraid to fail.
Mm-hmm. And also, staying on that, as an event manager, we face obstacles on a daily basis on facing people. So, what keeps you motivate, and keep you moving?
It's a good question. And I think, there really is hard days and there really is, hard times. But I think what really keeps me motivated is just knowing that I want great things for myself. I want to go
Mm-hmm.
far. I want to do really well. And I think the pain points and the hard days are a part of that. Embrace
Mm-hmm.
it. Welcome it. I honestly welcome it now because I think I
Mm-hmm.
learned so much from it. Like I said, don't be afraid to fail. Like you're gonna fall down 6 times, but you're gonna stand up the seventh, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
welcome it. I try and keep it moving. I process the bad days. I take them in. I don't ignore them and I don't
Mm-hmm.
shy away from them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what motivates me is just knowing that this is all a part of the journey and you're not gonna win without falling a few times, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And beyond your professional journey, what's the one mistake that fundamentally changed how you lead or think today?
It's a good question. I think it goes back to my number one bit of advice. I didn't used to meet people where they're at. I think I expected everyone to be like me or to
Mm-hmm.
communicate like me or to
Mm-hmm.
process things like me. And
Mm-hmm.
it was frustrating because I was like, wait, but I understand it this way, so why can't you? And I
Hmm.
think that I made that mistake a few times. And I think that, not everyone's going to have the same work ethic as you. Not everyone's going to understand things the same way as you. I think it taught me a lot about, people, relationships, upwards management, downwards management, all kinds, left, right, up, down
Hmm.
management.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm. Hmm.
I think I made that mistake a few times. And I think I now have changed my mentality to definitely meeting people where they're at before you go in expecting them to be like you.
And do you read books also?
I do. Not as
Mm-hmm.
much anymore because I don't have a lot of time, but
Mm-hmm.
I do. Yeah, I have a big library at home of books
Mm-hmm.
that I've read. I'm a physical book girl. I don't like a Kindle. I like a book.
Hmm.
I'm quite I'm
Okay.
quite old
Mm-hmm.
school. I'm quite old school that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and finally, when you hear grow better, what does that mean to you personally and professionally?
Grow better. What does that mean to me? Uh I think that means to me what you what you assumed growth was a year ago is very different now. I
Mm-hmm.
think be adaptable, be open to change, and
Mm-hmm.
grow better. I think when you grow,
Mm-hmm.
evolve, do it
Mm-hmm.
differently to how you did it last year. And
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
shows your evolution, that shows your adaptability, and that shows your growth. So yeah, grow better to me means, grow differently to how you've grown previously. I hope that made
Well,
sense.
yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Drenny, for joining me today. It's great to have you here, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and learnings.
Thank you, and it's been great to chat. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much watching this video till the end. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If there is any particular question you would like me to ask founders and leaders about product marketing, SaaS, AI, and growth, please let me know in the comment section. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.